Some lives are not lived. They are meticulously constructed, a character preordained for a specific brutal end. This isn't about fate, it's a design. What you are truly watching, what this is really about, is the blueprint of inevitable loss. You think this is about power. It isn't. You are not watching this by accident. Every quiet decision, every withheld truth, built towards an ultimate cost. But what truly breaks and who truly loses when a life becomes a weapon against itself? Meet Itachi Uchiha, the paragon, the genius prodigy who sacrificed everything for his village, his brother. A legend cloaked in stoicism, carrying the weight of a world on his shoulders. The older brother, the protector, the unwavering shinobi. This is the surface-level interpretation. It's comforting, it's neat. It provides a simple hero to admire, a tragic figure to mourn. You're told to see immense strength in his solitude, immense wisdom in his silence. But this narrative, widely accepted, is a carefully maintained illusion. It misses the deeper, more disturbing truth. The truth is more unsettling because it reveals a pattern. Itachi wasn't just a hero who chose sacrifice. He was a system. He was a solution to a problem he never created, yet was forced to embody. His entire existence, every significant interaction was framed. It was a sequence of deliberate omissions, calculated pain, and precise psychological warfare. This wasn't growth. It was containment. It's a structure you instinctively recognize, even if you can't name it yet. Consider the framing. From his earliest moments, Itachi was perceived as exceptional, a talent that transcended his peers. But this wasn't just natural aptitude. It was a burden, a spotlight that amplified expectations, pushing him toward an impossible standard. The village elders, the clan leaders, they saw a tool, not a child. This is where it breaks. This isn't about his natural abilities, it's about how those abilities were immediately exploited, redirected. His silence, it's portrayed as wisdom, as maturity beyond his years. But Itachi's silence was often a strategic void, a deliberate refusal to clarify, to explain, to offer closure. It kept Sasuke in the dark, fueling his hatred, driving his quest for vengeance. It maintained the illusion of the villain. This wasn't calm. This was tactical emotional starvation, an engineering of another person's emotional trajectory. You've seen this tactic before, perhaps even used it to control a narrative. And then there are the contradictions. He loved his village, yet slaughtered his clan. He loved his brother, yet tortured him with genjutsu. These aren't just moral quandaries, they are the deliberate fault lines in his design. Each contradiction amplified the tragedy, ensuring that his path was solitary, his decisions absolute. These weren't choices for him to wrestle with. They were parameters he was forced to accept. His apparent strengths were often carefully disguised limitations. His incredible genjutsu, his unparalleled strategic mind. These were the very tools that enabled his isolation, his ability to carry out horrific acts alone without the need for explanation or emotional support. They were not just powers, they were the mechanisms of his containment. He was strong enough to bear the unbearable, ensuring no one else ever truly understood the burden. What you call calm is often avoidance, a perfected defense against vulnerability. This is the mistake everyone misses. We admire the end result, the noble sacrifice, the hidden hero. But we rarely dissect the construction. We marvel at the finished sculpture without acknowledging the chisel marks, the broken pieces, the parts that were never meant to be whole. Itachi's strength wasn't just innate. It was forged under immense sustained pressure that stripped away his right to a normal life, to honest emotion. And this is an uncomfortable truth. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Itachi's story resonates so deeply because it mirrors a pattern within us. The tendency to accept a difficult role, to internalize expectations, to silence our own needs for a perceived greater good. How often do you find yourself taking on burdens that aren't truly yours, simply because you're seen as strong enough? His journey is a masterclass in controlled identity. He was forced to choose between the villain who saved the village and the hero who destroyed his family. But both identities were assigned to him. He never truly got to define himself. Think about your own life. How many of your fundamental choices are truly your own, and how many are reactions to external expectations, to the roles you've been cast in? The fear of not living up to an assigned role, of failing the unspoken expectations of others. can lead us down paths of profound self-sacrifice. Itachi's path was one of self-erasure, celebrated as heroism. His ultimate sacrifice wasn't just heroic, it was the perfected culmination of a self-erasure designed from his earliest choices. This wasn't about saving others, it was about losing himself so completely, the world couldn't help but see a god. It's the fear of ostracization, the need for validation, even if it comes through pain, that binds us to such narratives. Itachi was a master manipulator of perception, yes, but he was also the ultimate victim of it. He became what others needed him to be, until there was almost nothing left of who he could have been. And this is the contradiction. We idolize his burden, turning his suffering into an aspiration. But at what cost? What parts of ourselves do we sacrifice, silence, or erase simply to fit into the narrative others have for us? What happens when the weight of that constructed identity becomes too much, and the only escape is a form of self-destruction disguised as salvation? When Itachi finally revealed his truth to Sasuke, it wasn't a moment of triumph for him. It was the lifting of a lifelong burden, a final act of controlled release. He was finally able to step out of the role, but only in death, only after the damage was irreversible. He meticulously wrote himself out of his own story, ensuring his legacy was sealed by the very hands he sought to protect. His actions, however noble, were born from a lack of alternatives, a lack of self-determination. He was given a choice between two evils, and he chose the one that allowed the village to persist, even if it meant his soul would carry the weight of genocide and deception. This profound choice, though admirable in its outcome, highlights the tragic limitation placed upon his existence. Itachi's story is not just about a ninja hero. It's a mirror reflecting the quiet compromises you make, the silent battles you fight, the masks you wear to navigate a world that often demands you be someone else. His calm exterior was the shell of an immense inner conflict, carefully shielded from the world. He wasn't merely sacrificing his life, he was sacrificing his truth, his identity, his fundamental right to simply exist as himself. And in doing so, he showed us the dark side of devotion, the cost of being too useful, too willing to disappear for a cause. You watch Itachi and see sacrifice. But look closer, see the design, the silent manipulation, the deliberate erasure. What you call heroism might simply be the most intricate form of self-destruction, cloaked in purpose. And the more perfectly it's executed, the less you question the strings that pull it all together. What narrative are you living that was written for you, not by you? This is the core of Itachi's tragedy. His life was a testament to the fact that sometimes the most profound acts of defiance are performed by embracing the very chains that bind you. He was offered a choice, yes, but it was a choice between two meticulously crafted nightmares. One path led to the obliteration of his clan, his family, and the potential ruin of the village he swore to protect. The other led to the same obliteration, but through his own hands, allowing the village to survive by sacrificing his own soul, his honor, his very name. This wasn't a choice for freedom, it was a choice off control over the manner of his own damnation. He chose to be the orchestrator of his downfall, rather than a passive observer of a more chaotic one. His strength wasn't in overcoming the system, but in becoming the perfect instrument of its grim necessity. He understood that true power often lies in dictating the terms of one's own undoing, and in that understanding, he found a twisted form of agency. His calm, that unnerving serenity, was not born of peace. It was the absolute stillness of a perfectly tuned mechanism, devoid of personal will, executing a preordained, brutal function. Every flicker of emotion, every internal scream, was meticulously suppressed, buried beneath layers of carefully constructed indifference. This was the ultimate sacrifice, not just of his life, but of his self. He didn't just die for the village, he erased Itachi Uchiha for the village. The person with his hopes, dreams, and fears ceased to exist long before his heart stopped beating. He was merely a vessel, a living ghost tasked with a horrendous deed. Consider the weight of knowing this, of carrying the secrets that would condemn you in the eyes of everyone you loved, everyone you protected. To be the villain in your own story, by your own deliberate hand, for reasons no one could ever truly comprehend without seeing the full, agonizing tableau. This is why his silence was so potent. It was not merely discretion, it was the active refusal to allow any crack in his facade, any glimpse into the unbearable truth that might jeopardize the fragile peace he had bought with such terrible currency. And the mistake everyone misses? It's not just that he was a good person forced into bad acts, it's that his entire being became the necessary sacrifice, the design, his genius, his loyalty, his profound capacity for love. These were not attributes that saved him, but attributes that made him the ideal candidate for the role of pariah. They made him useful for a task no one else could stomach. The more brilliant he was, the more capable he was of executing the unimaginable, and the more perfectly he could sustain the lie, allowing the village to perpetuate its own narrative of peace without confronting its own ugly truths. His life was never truly his to live. It was merely a complex equation to be solved, with his own existence as the variable to be eliminated. The tragedy wasn't just in his death, but in the calculated, systematic dismantle of his very identity, leaving behind only the shadow of a hero or a villain, depending on the perspective required by the system. He understood the profound truth that sometimes the greatest sacrifice is not dying, but living a lie so profound, so absolute, that you cease to be real. And that, perhaps, is the true terror